Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fourth episode of Under the Shell, presented by Terrapin Sports Central. On today's episode, we're pleased to welcome former Maryland basketball star and professional in the U.S. and overseas, James Gist. And after the break, we will discuss this weekend's sports. I'm one of your co-hosts, Kevin Ireland.
Sam Jane.
Brennan Weissel.
Michael Big Mike House
will be joining us. All right, let's kick this off, guys.
This week's guest on the podcast played basketball for Maryland from 2004 to 2008. He's 10th all-time in rebounds at Maryland, 4th all-time in blocks. He's a 6-time Greek Basketball Cup winner, a 5-time Greek Basketball League champion, and the 2011 Serbia Cup MVP. Give it up for James Gist.
Thank you guys for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. And I hope anything that comes of this, it helps you guys tremendously. And we'll go ahead and get started.
All right, just to start it off, for listeners of the podcast who don't really know your story, can you explain what your basketball journey's been, starting from high school, then to playing overseas for over 10 years now?
Yeah. Taking it back to high school. I went to Good Counsel High School. Our Lady of Good Counsel at the time, it was located in Wheaton, Maryland. Now they have a new campus that's open in Albany, Maryland. Really nice school, everything. But I went to Good Counsel on sports scholarship and did 4 years there. I got recruited by University of Maryland. Gary Williams started recruiting me, I think, my sophomore, junior year, high school. And I think by the spring of my junior year, I think I had made my decision. I gave a verbal commitment to go to Maryland. Having the opportunity to actually go to Oak Hill my senior season, I declined it because, I had already secured my college, opportunity. At the time, I wasn't thinking about going to the NBA straight from high school, even though that was still, an option. The 2004 NBA class, I think, had about 16 or 17 guys, go straight to the NBA. And some of those guys were like J.R. Smith, Dwight Howard. The list goes on from that class. It was a strong year. So I went to Maryland. Did 4 years at Maryland. It was a great run, man. Great run. Made it to the NCAA tournament my junior year. The other 3 years, we unfortunately made it to the NIT. I think it was Gary Williams. We broke the streak of him going to the NCAA tournament consecutively, man. But the ACC during that time was really difficult. I think on average, they were taking around 5 teams in the tournament because we were one of the top conferences. But 1 year, I think they only ended up taking 4. And that was kind of where we got cut off on the bubble. We were on the bubble. And it happened a couple times. So unfortunately, we only made the tournament one time while I was at Maryland. But again, we were able to establish some real good memories, having some huge wins. Winning in Cameron Indoor my freshman year was probably one of the most memorable ones. And winning in Chapel Hill my senior year when North Carolina was 17-0. That was another, memorable victory along with, some other ones throughout the years. But definitely enjoyed the time at Maryland when I spent there, getting a chance to play with a lot of guys, the guys that had won the ACC tournament from the year before, going into my freshman year. That was an exciting time to be around those kind of guys. And then leading out to my senior year, I got a chance to play with Davis Vasquez, who just recently got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Getting 2 years with him was, another milestone. It was fun. He was a very electric guard. He lit the fire under the crowd, and it really helped us play strong, throughout the year. After I graduated from Maryland, I got drafted to San Antonio. San Antonio Spurs drafted me. I think it was the 58th pick, second round. And so that was an experience, man. Getting drafted, hearing my name called on draft night, it was exciting. It was fun. Going to San Antonio, meeting Greg Popovich, be alongside Tim Duncan, Manu, Tony Parker, those guys, and seeing, the level of professionalism that they had and the reason that they are such elite players, seeing their work ethic, everything like that was just amazing, and it helped me put things in perspective on how hard I need to work, and where I was and where I wanted to get. Unfortunately, my time in San Antonio was not really long. It was short. They owned my rights for 3 years, but I didn't actually go through into the regular season with them. After my third year with San Antonio, I got my rights released, and I had started my EuroLeague tenure overseas. Played in Serbia my first year. Second year, played in Turkey. Third year was in Spain, and I got traded mid-season. I was part of the first player-for-player trade overseas. You hear about it in the NBA all the time, where teams trade players. They get traded, contract for contract, whatever it may be. This doesn't happen in Europe like that. So I was the first player-for-player trade that happened in Europe, and I ended up in Greece. Played in Greece, and that trade, I ended up staying in Greece for 7 years. Played 7 seasons, and that was an exciting time. My son was born there. Got engaged with my wife, who's my wife now. Got engaged. My kids, they travel with me everywhere we go. And so that time in Greece was amazing. After Greece, I left Greece and I went back to Serbia again. I played for a different team at that time. After Serbia, I went to Germany, played in Germany. Then from Germany, last year I played in France. And here we are, year 15, waiting to see where I'm going to go next. And I missed 2 teams that I actually played with prior to my EuroLeague tenure in Serbia with Partizan. My first actual tenure overseas was in Italy. A small team named Biella, Angelico Biella. I played with them my first year. My second year, I took an injury right before training camp, so I was out and I wasn't able to go to camp that year in the regular season with the Spurs that year. And so once I got healthy by December, I ended up signing a contract in Russia for a team named Lokomotiv Kuban. So I played in Italy, played in Russia too, on top of those other countries that I named. So I've managed to be able to travel the world, play at a high level, win at a high level, and it's been something that has been fun. It's been something that's been fun. Basketball has been something that's opened many doors for me. And definitely still got some more journey to go right now.
So going back to your recruiting process, what was that kind of like? I read an interesting story how Roger Mason, who was an alumni from your high school, had like some sort of influence on you choosing Maryland, and that there was a potential package between you and Rudy Gay coming to Maryland that fell apart at the last second.
So my recruiting process, it was weird, because I'm more of what you would call the first generation. Nobody in my family has ever gone through this process, necessarily as rigorous and at a top D1 level like I was. And during that time, my junior year, where the recruiting process really picks up, my dad was not here. He was in the military. He served with the Air Force 21, 22 years. And this was around the time that 9/11 had happened. 9/11 had just happened, where the Twin Towers, had got hit with the airplanes. The Pentagon had got hit with the airplane. And so my dad had to leave. He had to go out the country. He went out the country for that whole entire year. He was gone for that whole year. So I went through that recruiting process with just my mom. My mom and my uncle helped me out. We met with colleges, different coaches and stuff like this. And so it was the first time, experience going through that stuff. My top 5 schools, I think, were Georgetown. No, not Georgetown. It was UVA, Maryland, Kentucky, Providence, and I want to say Florida State, maybe. And when it came down to it, I think it came down to UVA, Maryland, and Providence. A really good relationship with the guys at Providence. They really wanted me to come up there for Big East basketball. I think Ryan Gomes was there at the time, and he was the guy that took me on my recruiting visit. So I had a really good feeling about wanting to go to Providence, but at the same time, I had the University of Maryland that just won the national championship a few years before. They were coming off the ACC, or this is prior to the ACC, but they just came off the national championship. So I'm like, man, I get a chance to play here, and I don't have to really go nowhere. I really wanted to go to Kentucky, but Tubby Smith, they told me that they only had one scholarship to give, and they wanted to offer to Dwight Howard. And I was like, Dwight Howard's not going to college. He's going to go to the NBA. He's number 1 drafted. But they said if we have an opportunity, we want to use it. So in my mind, I was like, well, then I'm not that important. So we're going to mark that off the list. So then UVA came around. And Roger Mason, he was a fellow Falcon that went to the council. He was a really close friend of mine to family and stuff like this. So he was somebody that I really listened to about the process, because at the time he was in the NBA as well. So I knew he knew the way and what to do. And he went to UVA, had a great career. And he told me, he was like, look, you should go to Maryland. He was like, I think it would be a great fit for you. If I had that opportunity, he said that that was something that he thought would have been probably, good for him as well. But given everything that, he did at Virginia, he just said that, I think Maryland would be a better fit. And so when he said that, it was just like, okay, everything's off the board. I'm going to go to Maryland. And that was, that was how it went. That was how it went.
Yeah, can you take us through a little bit like that? It's a super interesting recruiting process, obviously, like a lot of different unique schools in different areas. Can you take us through a little bit about like when you say you were first generation, you go on that like college visit at Providence and they kind of like show you around. Like what went into that? If you can like divulge any like stories or details from that, like
I mean, it's more so, I went on, let's see, I went to, I think, 3 official visits. I think you get like 5. At the time, I think it was like 5. You get 5 official visits, and then you can do unofficial visits as well. I did a couple unofficial visits at colleges, but at the end of the day, they hook you up with one of the players on the team. Usually one of the popular players on the team, I guess, or one of the star players, standout players. And you go around with them for the weekend, from Friday to Sunday or something like that. Friday, you arrive, you get to go and participate in some of the classes that they have on campus, so you see how actual college day goes for a student athlete. After that, I think they have some games, or I went to an ice hockey game. I think they were playing Boston College. And so we went to the game after the classes were done. He was showing me, kind of how, college life is, student fan base, everything like this. The campus was pretty cool. It wasn't anything like Maryland. Maryland's different. It's one of the nicest campuses in America. Providence, though, was a smaller school. But I got a chance to see the nightlife, go out party a little bit and have some fun, in that aspect. And that's just what they're doing. They're trying to get you to want to go to their school, like their school. They're trying to show you things that's going to make you go like, oh, this is the best school. I want to go here. They try to do everything like that. So the different schools, they definitely gave their different pitches. I probably had my best time in Maryland. I think my best visit was probably Maryland. And it's a fun process because you go by yourself. You're 14, 15, 16 years old, during this time, because I was going into my junior year of high school when I was considering all this. I had a bunch of D1 schools with interest, coaches, handwritten letters, coming to the school during the day. I'd be in class and they would come get me out of class. Like, oh, you got to come down to the basketball office. We have a meeting. There's a college coach here. We want you to meet him. And this went on for weeks. Weeks. And it was a lot, because at the same time, I'm just a kid at the time. I'm just, I don't understand the gravity of what I'm about to do right now and choose a college where I'm about to go. And again, like I said, it's a first generation thing. So nobody had been through this process before. So this was the first time for me to experience it and, go through it. And now after going through it, I have my experience and I could be able to pass this information on and help anybody else that's going through it, currently or, whatever, just to be a consultant in that aspect. Because, going through those things, it can be difficult. It can be a lot, You got people calling you every day saying, come here, we want to do this for you. And ultimately, you got to make a decision.
Yeah, so then you kind of arrive, you're on the Maryland campus. You get to play under Gary Williams. You're playing ACC basketball. What are some of your fondest memories kind of from Maryland in that experience?
My first game, the first time I actually was like starstruck. And this is funny because, I'm used to watching these guys on TV. I never playing high school, man. I was on one of the top AAU teams. I was used to being around high level basketball players, people that were going to the NBA, and all that stuff. But it's different when you see guys on TV and then you see them in person, and you're actually playing against them. So we're playing in North Carolina, and this is the time they were the number 1 team in the nation. I think they went undefeated that season and won the championship maybe, or they lost one game in the ACC tournament and went on to win the championship with Raymond Felton, Rashad McCants, Sean May, Marvin Williams was coming off the bench as a freshman. They had a stacked team. It was crazy. And I checked into the game and they threw the ball to Sean May. And in my mind, I was like, oh shit, I'm checking Sean May. This is the moment right here. I didn't know what to think. I was just in awe. And being in North Carolina's, Chapel Hill's gym is 25,000 seats, and it's all powder blue. It's just bright blue. And this is the school that Michael Jordan played in. They got the big Tar Heel in the middle of the floor. It's just, all of it is surreal to me. I can't believe I'm in this moment. So, that was kind of my welcome to ACC, welcome to college basketball. You're actually here, moment where it's like I'm in the game, and I think I ended up playing good. I didn't play bad that game. I didn't get a lot of minutes. Now Maryland, we got beat pretty bad. Again, they were the #1 team, and it happened quick. At one point we were up 8 points, and the next time I looked at the scoreboard, we were down 16. And it just kept going. It just kept going. It was like a never-ending run of baskets. And I mean, it was just an experience to be a part of, man, as a freshman, to have never experienced something like that before. That was probably one thing. Another one was my freshman year when we went to Duke. We went to Duke down in Cameron Indoor, and we won. We beat them on their home court, and we came back to Maryland, man, and they were riding on Route 1. I mean, Route 1 was nuts, from the time that we got to the airport. I don't even think we flew. We did fly because we got back that evening. And by the time we got to the airport, they had helicopters, over the bus as we were coming, from BWI, all that stuff. We get to Route 1, man, and it's just packed. It's just packed. And it's just like, to see the love and support from the fans, it was like, yo, this is crazy. This is the type of school that I play at. I couldn't believe it, in the home games. I mean, Comcast Center, I think now it's called Xfinity Center, but Comcast Center was 17,000 to 18,000, and in those big games, the fan section was filled up, could never forget that feeling of playing in a gym like that, every night it's just full. Every night is full. And, we had one of the toughest home courts in America, at the time. So it's definitely some very fond memories, man. Very fond memories from playing there.
Yeah, it's great to hear. So Gary Williams is often considered one of, if not the greatest Maryland basketball coach of all time. Do you have any favorite story about playing under Coach Williams?
I got plenty of stories for playing with him, man. Coach Williams, man, he is the reason that I became a student at the game. He taught me a lot that I learned, later. But look back on it, he taught me a lot. And one of the things that he taught me was to be a student of the game, understanding basketball, understanding how to watch video. You don't just watch tape for highlights. You don't just watch tape for to see the end result. You see how things build up. You understand, momentum swings. You really just break down the video to get a full understanding, and that way you're prepared for every game. And that's how we watch tape. And it was never personal. When he's going off on us about some things that we did in the game or everything, it was all a learning curve, to teach us. And he just had that energy and that passion that it rubbed off on his players. Y'all know how energetic he was. I mean, if you watch the highlights and the clips of the days when he was coaching, man, Gary was fired up. He was a fired up coach, and it transcended to all the players. And so whenever we stepped on the court, we had that dog mentality as Gary Williams did. And he made it clear that, this was his team and that you was going to abide by his rules. You were going to play how he wanted you to play. And if you didn't have thick skin, you couldn't play for Gary Williams. I'll tell you that, man. He was tough. He was rough, man. He was never physical, but definitely he'll give you an earful. Man.
What happened the first time you heard, was there a time when when Coach Williams laid into you and you just were like, holy shit, whoa, and kind of when you first started playing under him, you just were kind of like, damn, he's really talking to me. There was that is that something you had to learn as you got older?
Honestly, I never really had any crazy run-ins with Coach Williams. I could tell you this: the worst place to be with Coach Williams is on the bench. If he was in the game, you were fine. But if he was on the bench, he was cussing you out. He's cussing everybody out. He was cussing the coaches out. If somebody messed up in the game, he's cussing the coach out. They're recruiting him. It's your fault he's doing this. You recruited him. And then he's looking at the players. He'll come look at me. It's your fault he's playing like this because you don't push him in practice. You don't do this. You catching the earful, spit, everything. He just sitting there like, man, put me in the game. Let me get in the game so I don't even have to listen to this, But it was never I had more moments with the assistant coaches. Gary was the guy, he called all the shots and he ran his practices, the way he wanted them ran, but the assistant coaches were the ones that were on everybody. They made sure that everybody stayed in line and ran coach's program. I remember one of my first practices as a freshman, and I was one of the only freshmen. I went to the basket or something, we were playing 5-on-5 in scrimmage, and I got fouled. And I yelled at the assistant coach, he's reffing at the time. His name was Dave Dickerson. I yelled at him. I said, man, call the foul, call the damn foul. Said it and ran back. I didn't even bat an eye, just looked back, ran back on defense and stuff like this. We were running down the court, And as we're running down the court, I see Dave Dickerson out the corner of my eye. He's just beelining it to like Terminator. He gets right to my nose and he's cussing me out. Who the hell do you think you talking to? You freshman? You gay? You think you listen to what I'm talking about? I'm sitting here like, oh shit, like I just messed up. I should never do that, and I'm never gonna do that again. You know, and in that moment, practice stops, everybody's watching. He's just top of his lungs, right in my face like a straight drill sergeant. I'm just like, you're right, my bad. It wasn't no foul. Never again. You know, I had moments like that, more so with the assistant coaches than I did with Gary. With Gary, I just knew not to cross that line. Like I would never, it was never a moment where I was yelling back at Gary or anything like that. It was never a moment that he felt like I was so out of tune that he really just had to get on me like that, you know? And I mean, he yelled at everybody, don't get me wrong. There were moments he probably yelled, but nothing that memorable that stood out like the assistant coaches. I'll tell you that.
Then moving on to your overseas play, you played for another legendary coach out in Greece under Rick Pitino. Do you have any favorite stories about playing under him, and like what was it like playing under him?
And Rick Pitino is another, you know, great coach, Hall of Fame. Him, Gary Williams, you know, Greg Popovich, Hall of Fame coaches, man. And Rick, you know, when he came to Greece to coach us in Panathinaikos. Our coach, Xavi Pascual, who was another great coach overseas, had a long career in Barcelona. Currently, he's in Russia right now. He had got released. You know, we weren't really having a good season. We were losing games, and so he got released. You know, overseas it's like that. And the same in the NBA. If you're not winning, they're gonna replace you. And so he gets replaced, and they find out we're trying to figure out who the new coach is gonna be. And on Twitter, everybody's talking about, wow, Rick Pitino's coming to Greece. And all the guys, you know, that's from America, we like, Rick Pitino, ain't no way he's coming over to Greece. Like, dude, you talking about Louisville, Rick Pitino? Not the guy that wears the white suits at the NCAA tournament, Rick Pitino? You know, him. And so they announce it. He's our coach. So he comes in, you know, first practice, he wants to see everybody. You know, it's kind of hard to change up everything in the middle of the season. So you kind of just got to get used to the guys that you have and just figure out what to do to make it work. And so we run it through practices and everything. In the first couple of days, you know, maybe even the almost first week, Rick Pitino ain't said not one cuss word. Now everybody know Rick Pitino, you know, is up there with Gary Williams and some of the best of them when they can just, you know, give you an earful when it comes to stuff like that. So Rick Pitino, you know, just being real nice, real gentle and everything, you know, talking real soft spoken. And me and one of my teammates, Stephen Ladler, walked over to him. We was just like, yo, Rick, we know the real you, Rick. We was like, man, just be the real you, man. You don't have to be the nice guy out here. We all grown, man. We could take it. And then from that moment, man, he went straight into drill sergeant mode. You know, he was on everybody, cussing everybody out, getting everybody in line. But, you know, the thing about him, what made him special was that he understood what it took to, like, you know, give you something to believe in. You know, give you something to believe in, give you a motivation and something to win. And that's something that's hard to do, I feel like, as a coach, is to motivate your team and give them something that they can play for and want to do it at a high level consistently to win. And it gives a result. And a guy like Rick Pitino, like I said, he's a Hall of Fame coach. He's proven. You know, he's proven. You can't say that what he's done in the past hasn't worked. It's worked. You know, he's got championships. He's sent players to the NBA. He's coached in the NBA. He's seen some of the greatest players play. You know, he's been a part of some of the greatest games ever played. And so, you know, he came in and instilled in us, you know, basic fundamental stuff. You know, he took it back to the basics. And he kept the game really simple for us. And eventually it got us to a point where we won. I think we were in 15th place. We were out of the playoff picture. And we had to win, like, out of 9 games, we had to win 7 of them. We ended up winning 8 in a row. And we lost the 9th game at the buzzer. Rudy Fernandez, we were playing Real Madrid in Greece. And ball bounced out the half court. He just launched it. Boom, bottom of the net. You know, game moment like that. And so, you know, we made a great run, ended up making the playoffs. And it was amazing. It was amazing that season and how he was able to change it around and to understand, you know, what it takes to actually win. And that's one thing that I probably could say that is in common with all those coaches, you know, that are Hall of Fame status, is that they all have the same mentality, you know, and when it comes to discipline, when it comes to the tenacity and the effort that you put forward in the game and the will to win. With Popovich, with Pitino, with Gary, you know, with a couple of other coaches that I had overseas, it was the same. There was no let off from those things. And so, you know, it's just been a great opportunity to have played under those guys, man. To have played under those guys has been a great opportunity.
Yeah, great that those coaches always not afraid to show some passion. So when you were in Serbia, when you played for Red Star, were you aware of the intensity that the soccer fans of the same club have, and were the fans for the basketball team as intense? Because the Red Star fans for the soccer club are known as some of the most intense and crazy fans in the world.
Yeah, well, when it comes to Serbia, it's two teams out there. It's Red Star and it's Partizans. And I managed to play for both. Serbia has some of the wildest fans in the world. You know, crazy as you want to call them hooligans. They call them hooligans. You know, they come to the games, you know, with the black mask, you know, what they call a Pushaisi mask now. They come with those things now to the games, you know, all black, everything, you know. They really come. Some of them come to watch the game. Some of them come to just really mess stuff up. You know, they want to be there and just, you know, it gets crazy. And, you know, when those two teams play each other, you can't have both fans in the arena. You can't have them in the stadium. It has to be, you know, if it's a home game for Partizan, it's only Partizan. If a home game for Red Star, it's only Red Star fans. Because if you have both of them in the gym, the game will never end. Somebody's going to die. It'll be like that. And that's soccer, that's basketball, volleyball, it don't matter. That's how deep the rivalry goes between those teams. And it's the same when I played in Greece. Two teams was Olympiacos, Panathinaikos, similar. You know, Turkey. Fenerbahce, when I played at Fenerbahce, our rival was Galatasaray. That game, you know, is similar. You know, those countries right there, when it comes to the fan base, I know you were talking about Red Star, but when it comes to the fan base, it don't matter if it's soccer, it don't matter if it's tennis, it don't matter if it's, I don't know, it could be foosball. They're going to fight to the death for their team to win. It gets crazy with it.
Yeah, always going to the extreme. So I guess that answers, I was going to see if the European fans bring an atmosphere like the NCAA, but I guess they do.
I mean, you know what the thing is? In America, you're safe. In America, it's safer. The athlete, I mean, fans gonna talk crazy. They're gonna maybe say some of the most reckless stuff. And I mean, in America, you speak English, you can understand it. When you're over there, you can't really understand what they're saying. You know they're cussing you out, but you can't understand it. So it's easy to just kind of drill it out. But the difference more so is in Europe, there's not enough security. If the fans really want to do something, they can really do something. There's been moments where fans will come on the court. There's been moments where fans throwing stuff on the court. You know, you got to run for cover. They throwing stuff on the court. Here in America, somebody throws something on the floor, the game's going to stop. They're going to replay the cameras. Everybody in that section is going to point to whoever did it. They're going to carry that person out. That person's going to go to jail. He's never going to be able to come back to the arena and stuff like this. You know, they carry it like that. So the player in America gets safe. And it's not to say that the fans aren't great, man. College atmosphere is crazy, especially during March Madness and all kind of stuff like that. You know, those games are top, bar none. Better than NBA, I feel like, at some points. But with that being said, you're safe. Over there, you're not safe. You can't think for 1 second that a fan won't come out the stand and try to punch you in the face and spit on you or do whatever. They're going to, if they want to and you're in the right place and something actually pops off, yeah, it's dangerous. It can get dangerous over there. It can get dangerous over there. That's why it's not funny, but I kind of like, when people say, oh, the fans said this, the fans did this, and people are getting fans removed from the game, I'm like, yo, come on, man. If you get mad about this stuff, you definitely wouldn't be able to handle it over there because it's 10 times worse. And they'll actually get physical with you. And you can't do nothing. You're not going back over there. You're not going to go in the fans. You're not going to go up there and try to get anybody. You're not going to make it. You know, it's too many. Security, they will sit and watch, and even the security goes to the security will go to the hospital with you.
Yeah, I mean, as a player, something I think all the fans always imagine is really how much do you hear the crowd? How much do you hear the noise? And it sounds like it's something that you do hear a little bit. So how much, like when you're actually on the floor in the middle of a game, do you pay attention to what's going on, or are you completely focused on making a play?
I mean, you're laser locked in when you're supposed to be laser locked in. But in some arenas, man, it's deafening. In some arenas, it's deafening. Just like you guys are sitting right next to each other on the couch right now. You guys will not be able to hear each other. And you're sitting there like, imagine, you know, you're running up to set a pick and roll. Your man's about to set a pick and roll on your guard. You're sitting, you're trying to yell out, pick, so he don't get hit. He can't hear you. Boom, he gonna hit the pick every time and stuff like this, you know. So I mean, you hear it, but you're so locked into the game, you know, that you're not really focused on it. When you get rattled is when you start messing up as a team. You start turning the ball over. They hit some threes, they make some big shots, somebody get a big block, or you know, a momentum swing. The momentum swing happens, and then now the crowd's involved. And now you're trying to call a timeout, you're in the middle of timeout trying to hit a play, you can't hear nothing because the crowd's on. That's when you hear the crowd more than anything. But when you're in the game, you're really laser locked in. You're really laser locked in. And when you're playing on the road, one of the most important things to do is don't let the crowd get involved. If you let the crowd get involved early, it's going to be a long game. You know, you try to avoid runs. You know, when teams are playing on the road, you know, you have to be solid because the home team is going to make runs. The home team is going to make shots. They're playing off of pure emotion and energy for some parts. But when it comes down to basketball, you got to lock in. You can't be worried about the fans. And I mean, I've had the privilege to play at Maryland that has 18,000, you know, fans every game. You know, a lot of people coming overseas didn't have that opportunity. They were playing at mid-major colleges, or they played, you know, who knows, didn't really play high-level college at all. And their fan base was probably 3,000 in the gym. So now you go to a European arena where it's 20,000 crazy drunk people yelling and screaming. You expecting to make free throws at the end of the game? You expecting to knock down a big shot? You know, yeah, some people panic in those situations. I've been fortunate enough to be in that situation pretty much my whole career and prior to it.
So when you look at like how American culture treats athletes in terms of recognition and hype, how does Europe compare to that high living and fame that a pro basketball player might get?
It goes hand in hand, you know. For Europeans, they're so passionate about the game that I would say they love basketball more than we do. They just can't play it. And it's like when you find a player, and this I'm talking about the teams, when you have a player on your team that's doing nothing but playing with full passion, full energy, and fighting, they feel like you're fighting for them, you're fighting for their team. The team and the country itself will embrace you. They'll embrace you, they'll call you one of their own. You know, they'll feel like your family, and they'll make you feel that way, you know, and that's the thing. And certain coaches over there, they're really warm coaches, you know, really family-oriented, like Italy. Greece was really like that, you know, those two places I could think of where it's just real home feeling. You know, family dinner style, long table, food everywhere. You just pick your plate and go around. It's like that, you know. In America, you know, you have your top tier athletes that, you know, they, you know, is the image, is the face of your team. And it's always going to be that. But in Europe, it can change from year to year, depending on who's in the roster, who's not. You have your main players that everybody likes. But again, they're so passionate about it. When they see a player that's really playing for them, they embrace it and to the fullest. And it's no better feeling. Like, you know, if I look at my career and let's say I go to the NBA, I wouldn't say that I probably wouldn't be one of the top players on the team. Or I couldn't make that leap, but you know, they already have their star players. They already have their franchise players. So I'm really just coming in to play a role. I'm really coming in to fill a void, you know, for the star players. When I'm overseas, I am the star player. You know, I am the guy. You know, you have a gym, 20,000 people screaming your name, you know, like that. So, you know, I can't say that it's too much different, but you know, they embrace you just as much, you know, if you're a big player for them.
So yeah, definitely. So you've obviously stayed overseas for the majority of your career. Is that some of the reason why? Because you would be more of a star player versus a role player? That would play a factor in that?
Not necessarily. The biggest reason why was I was always under contract. I never had the opportunity to go into the summer like a free agent during my prime years and try out for an NBA team. I was always under a 2-year deal or a multi-year deal. And with Europe, they signed the big contracts early. You're going to sign these June. I mean, you're not supposed to sign these during the seasons and stuff like this, but players do. You sign contracts. Teams want you for the next season. They know you're a free agent. They're going to come and throw some bread at you in March, April, you know, and this is going to be under the table. And then at the end of the season, they'll announce it that this player is going here. Free agency for NBA doesn't open up until mid-July. And in mid-July, they're making sure they get the max players first. So now you're pretty much waiting all the way up to training camp, which is September, October. And 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to get a minimum deal, which is not bad at all. But even now, they got 2-way deals. You got G League opportunities. A lot more opportunities to get in the NBA now than it was when I came out of college. But then again, like I said, the big money offers are coming earlier in the summer. So you're nixing everything that's coming over Europe when they're offering multi-year deals just to try to make an NBA roster where you might not make it because of numbers or money or whatever, injuries. You never know. Anything can happen in that situation. So it's more of having a security blanket of having a job. I was always in the contract. My contract always had an NBA out, but if an NBA team could pick a player without having to break the contract and pay money, that's what they'll do. You know, so I was always in a position where I was under contract. It never really presented itself to go over. If I had an opportunity to work out for a team, the negotiation was, can you play summer league? You got to talk to my team. 9 times out of 10, my negotiation period ended mid-July. So I'm locked in for the next year. I just never was free. I was never free to be a free agent and make that decision.
Yeah, so you've won quite the number of awards through college and through the European leagues. Like you've won the Greek Basketball League multiple times, second team All ACC. Do you have one defining, I would say, accomplishment in your career that you're most proud of?
Uh, I'd probably say winning a title in multiple countries. You know, it's one thing to win a championship. You know, you win one, it's a great feeling, you know. But when you win multiple ones, it's like that feeling never gets old. You know, it's like it's a high that you're looking for every time you're playing. It's like I want to win. I want to win with a championship. Every country that I've played in, I've had the opportunity to compete for a title, whether I want it or not. I've had the opportunity to compete for a title. I probably say my greatest accomplishment is winning a title in multiple countries, multiple leagues at a high level, and doing so shows that I'm a winner.
Yeah, so you've talked about
Another question I got for you, real quick. Sorry, I was just gonna say, gotta ask, Jordan or LeBron?
I'm a Jordan guy, man. I'm a Jordan guy. I think, you know, LeBron is probably the best all-around player to play the game. You know, hands down. You know, at the end of his career, the numbers are going to be astronomical. Not going to come close to it, you know, but that's just numbers. You know, at the end of the day, 20 years from now, when they look at the numbers, they're going to say Bron, just off the numbers. You know, but when you look at the game and how Jordan played it and what he brought to the game and how he did what he did, the way he did it, there's nobody close. I don't think there's anybody close. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, so you've talked a good bit about some of the differences, right, between basketball in the U.S. and overseas. But a lot of it was more like about the fans and stuff. Is there any difference, like specifically on the court, that you've noticed?
Yeah, one of the main differences is that, you know, the game is longer overseas. The game is there's 48 minutes in the NBA game. You know, it's 12-minute quarters. Overseas is 10-minute quarters, which means there's less possessions. So every possession is more valuable overseas. And the NBA is more of a run and gun game. They're trying to get up and down. You know, they want to run the score, get as high as they get. I mean, the games are going 125 points. You're never going to see a 125-point game in Europe. You know, a team hits 100, they were just shooting lights out from the three-point line, and the other team was just, you know, gassed, you know, but you're rarely going to see 100-point games in Europe. Another thing, you know, there's no defense in 3 seconds in Europe. I think that's a huge difference between European basketball and basketball in the States, because, you know, you hear it all the time. Guys say, you know, it's harder to score in Europe. It's easier to score in the NBA. There's more space. You know, there's a time limit for the defender to be in the paint. In the NBA, you get a defense of 3 seconds as a technical foul, they get one free throw and the ball back again. In Europe, they can literally put a 7-footer or a big man in the paint the whole time. He's not going to leave. So, you know, you got to be able to shoot the ball. You got to be able to move the ball more in Europe to get effective points. And I think that's why some people struggle, you know, like Giannis. Yeah, he got MVP in the NBA. He came over for the FIBA World Games in China, and, you know, he didn't look like the NBA MVP. Not to say that he's not a great player. You know, he is what he is. He's dominant. I think he's this generation Shaquille O'Neal personally. But he didn't look like that in Europe because it forces you to be a shooter, for one. Now he's developing his jump shot, and it's helping expand his game. You have to guard him more. You have to go out there now. And the transition is deadly, but in those half-court moments where you can just lock down the paint and you force him to take shots, you force him to take shots. It's difficult. It's harder to score. Luka Doncic, who's killing in the NBA, said the same thing. You know, he was playing great basketball in the NBA. I mean, in Europe in the early, scoring 20 points a game. But now he's coming to the NBA scoring 50 because it's easy. It's more space. You know, the defense is different. It's a lot more physical overseas. And, you know, in those situations, you know, I think that's the major difference. I think that's the major difference.
One last question for you, James. Thank you, by the way. This has been amazing. Who would you say the one person in your basketball career has been who's had the most influence on you to get you to where you are now in your basketball journey?
You know, it's hard to put it on one person. it's really hard to pin it on one person because I've had the opportunity again to be coached by so many Hall of Fame coaches, as I said before. I've and one thing, that I've done throughout my career is I've taken something from everywhere I've played, every coach that I've been a part of. When I'm done at the end of my career, I want to be a head coach. That's my end game. That's my goal, is to be a coach. And I want to be a head coach at a high level, and I want to win at a high level, whether that's NBA, whether that's college, whether that's overseas, wherever I decide to be a head coach, wherever I get the opportunity, I'm gonna do that because of the experience that I've been able to take over the years. So it's hard to say that I take anything from one person to do one person influence. I have the opportunity to play for all the different coaches that I played for, and some of the greatest players that I've had the opportunity to play with. That has been something that has helped me throughout my career. So I can't really just put it on one person. Sorry.
Yeah. So earlier on, you mentioned, right, like year 15, and then you just mentioned coaching. So what are your next steps?
My next steps right now is going to be finished playing my basketball career. I still got some gas in the tank, man. Like I said, I'm just coming off of a championship in France. We won the Pro A League out there. We didn't do good in EuroLeague last year, but we did win the French League. We beat Monaco in the finals. I know you guys are probably familiar with Mike James. He played in the NBA. He was playing with them last year in Monaco. He's there this year as well. I think they got a game tonight playing against Panathinaikos. It's crazy. But I still got gas in the tank, man. I still want to see how much longer I can go. My goal was always to play until I was 40 and dunk on somebody when I'm 40. I don't know if I'm actually going to reach that point, because I think not because of a physical aspect. I think it's more of a mental thing, having the patience with the new generation of players. I have the patience to be able to teach something, but when I'm in it and playing, it's a little bit harder because I want it so bad, and I want people at that level. When you play at that level for so long, that it's just, it's in you. It's in you. It's contagious, and so you try to pass that off. And so you might get some buck back from the young guys and trying to understand. So that's like the hardest thing to deal with right now. Physically, I still have the legs and the wherewithal to still contribute and win something serious. And so, at least for the next couple of seasons, that's my goal. God willing, I can retire on my own terms and not because of injury or anything else. But once I'm done, I want to transition into coaching. I want to try and see which direction and which way I can go. And I know it's a ladder that I have to climb, just like I did through basketball. Starting later in my career, at an older age, you have some coaches that have been doing this for 20 years already, so they already got their things. And, the one thing that I can say that I have is my experience. I've been in winning teams. I've dealt with winning coaches. I know what works. I have my own philosophy that I pull from every coach, and I watch basketball. I'm a student of the game. Like I said, Gary Williams made me that. So it's in me. And so I played basketball this long, going into year 15. I feel like it would be a sin to not give back what I've learned from the game. I got a blueprint. At the end of the day, why not pass it on to the next generation? I was the first generation, so I didn't have it. Nobody was that for me. So I would like to be that for the next generation if I can. And again, my goal is to be a head coach, and my goal is to win something serious. And that's gonna be my motivation once I retire.
All right, well, James, thank you so much for coming on, sharing a little bit about your basketball careers, and we wish you the best of luck this season, upcoming seasons, and your coaching journey.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I wish you guys all well. Good luck this year. Do good in school. I got to keep them grades up, man, for sure.
Yeah, great interview with James earlier today. We're now in the studio. We're going to recap some sports. But before we get to that, let's talk about what we thought about the interview. What do you guys think?
I thought the most interesting thing to come out of that was probably actually him talking about all the fans, He was talking about how, American fans, they can talk all they want, but, European fans, he said there's not a lot of security down there. They will actually go down to the court if they actually want to. I thought that was a pretty interesting thing he talked about.
Yeah, he had a lot of interesting things to say. I thought the one of the coolest things that he was talking about was playing under coaches like Rick Pitino, Gary Williams, just feeling like we got an inside scoop on the passion that he brings to the practices, and even Gary Williams' assistant coaches at the time, they would also chew out the players. So there was no hiding from those guys.
Yeah, no, definitely. Super interesting guy. I think I took from it was, some of it's just how hard it is to make it to professionally play in the NBA, the NFL, all those things. The guy was a stud at Maryland, obviously, gets drafted by the Spurs, who are notorious for developing, athletic wings, which James is, and 6'9", and can jump out of the building. And he's had a long and successful career overseas, which I think people discount when they think of basketball players. But I mean, the guy's won everywhere he's been. He's been a good player, and I mean that's a pretty. He's gotten to travel the world. He said, he talked about how basketball has provided him with so many opportunities to see the world, and that's something that I had never really thought of, and that's a super valuable thing that comes with playing overseas.
Yeah, the biggest thing I took away was kind of what he talked about, the differences between basketball overseas and basketball in the U.S., and talking about how there's no defensive 3 seconds overseas, and how that kind of changes the way they attack on the offensive side. And just talking about how when players come over after playing overseas, for example, he mentioned like Luka Doncic, averaging way more points in the NBA because of less tight defense down in the paint.
And then also the tidbit about the recruiting visits that he had. I thought that was pretty interesting to hear about, like what they did when he went down to Providence, when he went to Maryland, how that all was, like seeing what the nightlife was.
I wonder what the party life is like at Providence. It's probably an interesting place to go out at night, but we'll never know. But obviously, guys, let's as we move on from James, super cool interview. Let's preview this weekend's action, because there's to be some interesting games and some really cool storylines to follow.
Yeah, I'll kick us off. Hottest team right now for the University of Maryland. Maybe the field hockey team, but probably the volleyball team. 3-game win streak.
Follows Brendan Weissel on Twitter, by the way.
They do follow me. Actually, fun fact, Sam, they have not lost a set since they followed me on Twitter.
Wow.
They have won 9 straight sets, and 1 win came to number 9 ranked Purdue away. First ever top 10 away win for Maryland since they've been in the Big Ten. Coincidence? I don't know.
Don't call him a good luck charm.
That's the Brendan Weissel bump right there.
Absolutely. So that's definitely a positive, but back to that, people who are actually on the court. Sydney Dowler and Anastasia Russ both named to Big Ten honors this week as well. And upcoming this weekend, hoping to stay hot, they are. And they're playing 13-ranked Penn State at home. And then following day, Northwestern, who they played last Friday, Saturday at 8 p.m. The Northwestern game, they should be able to take care of them because they did it just last week. Penn State game, it's going to be tough to take down 2 ranked opponents in the same week.
Yeah, definitely should be an interesting one. It's kind of crazy how once you get one, it starts to give you momentum, and them winning on the road and a Big Ten ranked opponent should give them some hot streak going into this weekend.
Yeah, Sam, you talked about it when you did your gamer about Illinois, but they were just pretty sloppy, getting beat with a bunch of lob shots, and they've really eliminated those, and they've been a much cleaner team, and they've been able to, when they get hot, stay hot. And their big issue was when they got on runs, easily taken over, and now since that Illinois game, they've been composed and doing well.
Yeah, another one of those hot teams will also be playing this weekend, and we know about Mike's expertise in field hockey. Mike, take it away.
So, field hockey team, they're coming off a big win against Rutgers Sunday. They defeated number 19 Rutgers 4-3 to clinch the Big Ten. At least they clinched a part of the Big Ten regular season. They can clinch the full regular season championship tomorrow against Penn State if they defeat Penn State. But against Rutgers, there was 4 goals scored in the final 5 minutes. That was capped off with Leah Krause winning the game for Maryland with 41 seconds left with her second goal of the game. So good for them. Great win. Exciting finish. That was great watching that from the press box. So looking forward to tomorrow. They're facing number 5 Penn State at Penn State. Penn State, they're averaging 3.06 goals per game. That's third most in the Big Ten. And they're led by goalkeeper Bree Baracco. So she actually has the second highest save percentage in the Big Ten at 77.6%. So it's going to be a tough challenge for the Terps trying to get to the right spots and attack that goal. But then again, like we've talked in previous podcasts, they have a great defense. They're averaging the most goals a game in the Big Ten. They have the highest win margin, 3 goals per game by the Big Ten. But this could be a test for Maryland. It's the highest rated ranked opponent for the rest of the season for them, and it is away. So this could be a test for them. It's going to be a fun one to watch.
Surely a battle of the juggernauts there in the Big Ten.
Mike, I know you saw them celebrate that share the Big Ten title. You've been covering them pretty closely. Do you think that'll be the last thing they celebrate this year?
I think they have a big chance at winning the Big Ten tournament. If they defeat Penn State, they'll get a bye game in that Big Ten tournament. So if they get that bye game, that's huge because they get extra rest that other teams won't get. So they get that bye game with that extra rest, especially since they have banged up players right now. Hope Rose, she was I believe so. She was leading the Terps in goals with 10 goals when she was injured. She's still tied for the lead, but she hasn't played in the past 5 games. Emma DeBurdine, she's one of their leading scorers. She's missed the past 2 games for them, so getting that extra rest will be crucial for them entering the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, keep an eye out for the field hockey squad. Kick into soccer. The men's soccer team had a bit of a disappointing week. They drew 2-2 against Wisconsin, but this one kind of felt like a loss because the Terps were dominant on the attack, created a bunch of golden opportunities, but they were unable to capitalize until the second half when they were already down 1-0. Coach Sasha Sorowski said that they might have been the sharpest all year on the attack, but unfortunately Wisconsin was able to make the most of their chances, including scoring on their only shot on goal in the second half. However, Nick Richardson kept his offensive form with another assist, and goals from Stefan Capetti and Josh Bulma pushed the unbeaten run to 9 games. However, it ended against High Point this past Monday as they lost 2-1 at Ludwig. Hunter George did, though, have a fantastic goal. He must have thought Halloween came early, dressing up as Lionel Messi with a dazzling solo run, slicing through the entire High Point defense before putting the ball past the keeper to get the scoring started.
Yeah, that as much as Hunter George's goal was super impressive. I mean, you can't have that loss if you're Maryland. I mean, at home against a really inferior opponent. It's the thing we've talked about, Kevin, or that you've specified, is that they play up to opponents, it seems, but they also play down to opponents. So, I mean, what do you take away from that game? Is that like a season-defining loss, or is that something they can move past?
In my opinion, I think it could have just been a fluke, but like as we've seen, any given day, any result can happen. But as we've seen in earlier games this season, the Terps have played down to the opponents, like you said, and they're just looking to move past this one, brush this one off the shoulder, get back on track against Michigan State this week.
Yeah, it's a tough loss, but the positive they can take away is that it's not a Big Ten loss, so they stay at the top of the standings there. So it's going to hurt morale, but it could end up being a positive thing as it shocks them back to life, and got to show up to every game no matter who the opponent is.
Yeah, something else that was shocking over the weekend was obviously the injury to Talia Tagovailoa. Injured I believe it was his right MCL, which was the injury that he originally suffered against Michigan. Wearing a brace, it looked way worse than it actually ended up being. Mike Loxley called it an MCL. When it first happened, I think we all probably thought the worst, and it's pretty surprising to me. The big question, obviously, will be, is he going to play this weekend, because he has a game-time decision. To me, it seems likely that Billy Edwards is going to start, especially with a bye week coming next week, which would provide Talia with some extra rest. Edwards did impress in last week's game. Mike, what did you think about how the young kid looked?
So I think they could win with Billy Edwards against Northwestern. He didn't throw the ball enough for him to judge him off his throwing performance against Indiana. I mean, he only had 3 attempts. But then when you look to his performance against Michigan, he was 5 for 9 for 62 yards and 1 touchdown. He had 150.1 passer rating. Reminder, 158.3 is the highest you can get. So that is a pretty good passer rating. And then he really showed off his rushing ability against Indiana. He had 5 attempts for 53 yards and 1 touchdown, including that 131-yard rush where he looked like beast mode. So I think they'll win with Billy Edwards. Billy Edwards is a suitable backup. So expect big things from the redshirt freshman, transfer too, if he does start against Northwestern Saturday.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I started the Billy Edwards fan club a couple weeks ago when he made his cameo. But Northwestern is awful in the secondary as they give up over 300 yards a game. And actually, they gave up over 300 yards to Wisconsin and 6 touchdowns in that game.
I want it to be noted that Wisconsin is one of the worst passing offenses in the Big Ten. So if you give up 6 touchdowns to Graham Merce in that passing offense, rough luck. So, Cav, you obviously said you're a Billy Edwards guy. Do you think that they're going to just try to kind of not let him make any mistakes, or you think Loxley, if he does start, might let it fly a couple times?
I think they're going to start out, just have him manage the game, and if it goes well, then I think they're definitely going to let him sling a couple downfield and open the game up a little bit with the passing game.
Yeah, definitely, and they'll be able to do that because Northwestern's offense also hasn't scored more than 14 points in a game over the last month. So this is a game that they should be able Maryland that is, they should be able just to clench down, play good defense, let Edwards manage the game, don't ask him to do too much, and then come away with the win. And another stat that should have some benefits is for Maryland is something Brennan is going to bring to the audience's attention.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sam. So I provided the family weekend stat, which did not go in Maryland's favor. The homecoming stat,
Stats don't care about your feelings.
they don't. The homecoming stat's a little bit nicer to the University of Maryland. Since 2015, Maryland has only lost one homecoming game, and that game was to Michigan. They're not facing Michigan, so it should help them out.
Taking a look at the women's soccer program. So, quick recap. Not a great week for the Lady Terrapins as they were unable to handle the Minnesota Golden Gophers in their final home game of the season. And they fell to 2-8-5 on the season, and it seems like everything has gone wrong on this back half. But they look to stop the bleeding with a trip to Indiana as they take on the Hoosiers. I believe that game is going on right now. We can get a live score in just a few moments. They will also face Purdue this Sunday, October 23rd, and hopefully Coach Megan Ryan Nemser can close her first season as head coach on a high note.
Cavett, just give us a review of her first season. How do you feel about it? It's obviously over, but the homestand's over. It's coming to the end. What do you think?
Well, it started off pretty much as mediocre as it could have with 5 draws in a row, just about. And then it kind of just fell down the slope. There's really the only positives you could take away are the 2 wins and maybe a couple of draws against tough opponents. But I think something's going to have to change. She's going to have to just build that culture. It is her first year as head coach, so you want to build a team. She wants to get her coaching philosophy down, get those tactics going. And as we see right now, Maryland is currently tied 0-0 with Indiana.
0-0.
0-0, as they say. You want to kick into the picks?
Speaking of not many correct things, or 0, if you will, Mike, give us the standings for the picks.
So Shell Pick'em, in its first week, we got Sam at first place, 3-0. Next up, Big Mike, that's me, 2-1. Brendan, 1-2. And then Cavett's strategy of going off the vibes really worked out well, going 0-2-1.
Woohoo! What did the ties count for anything, Mike? High five.
West Virginia didn't hit?
The line was 3, I believe, and I think
they won by 3,
yeah,
so it's a tie.
It's a tie, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's it'll be interesting the rest
Better
of
than
the
a loss.
year. Well, that's true, but we'll see how it goes, and let's see how this week looks. Mike, what do you got?
I can start us off. So the first pick I'm going to get is TCU favored by 3.5 versus Kansas State. The Horned Frogs just have an electric offense this season. They're averaging 45.8 points per game, and they have 43 plays over 20 yards compared to the Wildcats, just 20. So I think this may be close in the beginning because Kansas State, they do have a good defense, but I think as the game goes on, TCU's offense is just going to break their defense.
Love that pick.
Going forward, we're going to do Oklahoma State +6 over Texas. So Oklahoma State, they are 8-3 since 2010 over the Longhorns. And the last 5 meetings between the teams have been decided by single digits. And it's also hosted by Oklahoma State. So look for a closer game than they think there. And then my last one is going to be Minnesota +4 at Penn State. I know it's whiteout. I know Tanner Morgan isn't playing.
Hate that pick.
But Penn State has a terrible rushing defense. They've allowed 136.2 rushing yards a game. They allowed over 400 yards on the ground against Michigan. And then Minnesota, they're led by Mo Ibrahim. Running the ball is what the Gophers do. They average 227 rushing yards a game, 3rd most in the Big Ten. So I think that rushing attack for the Gophers is going to keep the game closer.
Yeah, Mike, I like the first 2. Last one, not a fan. Reason Penn State is allowing so many yards per game is because of that 400-yard performance that Michigan had on the ground. Before that game, they entered into it with the 5th-ranked rush defense in the country. So if I had to say, for all you listeners out there, you should listen to the guy on top of the leaderboard.
I'm just saying, if it happens against one rushing offense, that's pretty good.
That's true.
It can happen against another.
History does tend to repeat itself. And so now into my picks. I'd like it to be known that me and Mike had opposing picks, and mine was correct. So
all right.
Just gotta
you also went 1-2 overall. I went 2-1.
The tension is palpable, folks.
It's just, I just gotta get that out.
Wash yourself, Wizzy.
All right. Well, first pick for me is Ole Miss +2 versus LSU. A lot of reasons to like that pick.
I love that,
and I like it a lot. So
Zach Evans is a dog.
Next, we have Stanford +2.5 versus Arizona State University. ASU's been bad. Stanford just won a game. Stanford +2.5. And then final pick is Alabama -21 versus Mississippi State. Alabama losing to Tennessee. They're fired up. They're not going to let this one be close at all. Alabama could win by 40, maybe 50.
B, those are 3. I'm going to be honest. I would not be surprised if you went 3-0 this week.
I would not either because I know how to pick games. Pick the winner.
I do really
1-2.
I
know how to pick games.
I do really enjoy that pick, or those
you.
picks from Brendan. My picks, which folks, I mean, if you're looking for, to make a little side cash, this is the guy you should listen to. IU, Indiana, for those of you who don't know, -3 against Rutgers. Two teams that, frankly, aren't very good. I like Indiana because that passing offense, while it is predicated on a lot of screens and short passes, I think it should shred up Rutgers secondary. I like Texas A&M to cover 3 against South Carolina. Spencer Rattler, certified not good. Texas A&M is also not a very good team.
He certified it.
Jimbo Fisher is a fraud. But the Aggies have a great defense, and they will force a couple of turnovers. Lastly, I like Purdue +2.5 against Wisconsin. Charlie Jones, Aiden O'Connell, that secondary, it's good, folks. And Wisconsin, the passing attack for the Boilermakers, frankly, it's better. I like the fact that Purdue is on the road. They played Wisconsin tough over the past couple of years, and I see this one going the Boilermakers' way. And so it should be an interesting weekend.
I love that criticism there for the Texas A&M South Carolina game. That was great.
Frankly, I mean, Spencer Rattler, if I had to say a guy who's fallen off the cliff more, it would be I couldn't say anybody more than him. I mean, the guy went from being projected #1 overall pick to now he's not even on draft boards.
Putting up Fetty Wap numbers there.
All right, let's move on
Is
to
that a
Cavs.
7-9 joke?
No,
What
I
is
was
that
saying,
joke?
speaking of falling off hard.
Oh,
All right,
okay.
whatever. When faced with adversity, some shy away, some crumble, some even die. But me, I don't change my philosophy, and I won't back down. We're going based off vibes once again. First pick, Iowa +30 versus Ohio State. Next pick, LSU -2.5.
Folks,
Are you
we
kidding
have-
me? Are you kidding
Wow,
me?
2
We
weeks in a
have-
row.
Out of your mind?
A head-to-head
A
clash.
roommate battle.
It's a trap game. Vegas wants you to think they know something, but they don't know anything.
Ole Miss by 50.
Yeah, with those gross powder blue jerseys.
Ooh.
Just kidding. I do really like those
beautiful.
jerseys.
Now you have gone.
That's
I
a really
do. I
bad
do
take.
really
Those
like
are
those
up
jerseys.
there with Maryland script jerseys
Wow.
for the
Yeah.
best in college football.
Final pick, Texas -6.5 versus Oklahoma
That's
State.
2. That's 2 head-to-heads.
Oh my God!
Folks,
Wait,
what
who
you're
else had?
looking at-
Who had Oklahoma State?
I
What
did.
you're looking
Mike
at
does.
here
Yeah.
is,
Oh my God!
fellas, this could make or break the standings
Sam,
this week.
Wow.
what's one of your picks?
I have Texas A&M -3 against South Carolina. Are you going for the jugular?
I say if all of those hit, he gets an extra point.
Give me South Carolina. 4 picks this week.
All right, so you gotta take one out. Take it the Iowa pick. though.
Ah, okay. I'll take away the Iowa
I guarantee Iowa's the only one that hits in that three.
pick. I love the Iowa pick.
He's riding
Yeah,
with
I
the
actually I like
vibes.
the Iowa pick too.
He's riding with the vibes.
All right.
All right, good. Hey, Cap,
All right.
clap it up for that. That was good. I like that.
Yeah. You know what else is spectacular?
Terrific Terrapin. There we go.
We got it down. All right, terrific Terrapin this week. Not too much to say here. James Gist, thank you very much for coming on the pod.
Great interview.
Pleasure.
Great stories.
Yeah, I mean, James obviously great person to have on. We can now call him a friend of the podcast, followed by Kevin Durant on Instagram.
Whoa.
So, folks, we basically know Kevin Durant, if that makes sense. He's coming on next Friday.
Friend
False,
of a
not
friend.
true.
Easy money sniper.
Yeah, I mean, great episode. That was such a cool interview, and I'm hoping you guys enjoy it as much as we do.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to Under the Shell, episode 4. It's been a pleasure. And as always, good night.